Okay. Welcome. Ooh, I love these little sheets appearing saying you're live. Here's your analytics, no one's watching you. Stream settings, everything's functional. Let's see, chat is functional. Hello everyone, can you hear me? Is the audio quality good? One of my biggest weakness, audio quality. But hopefully it's fine now. And if it isn't, you let me know, right? Yeah. Let's go. It's another exciting live stream. I haven't done these for a while. Always good to do. We have quite a few new people. Everyone's enjoying the video. I'm glad to see that. Mostly everyone. There's a few naysayers out there, but that's okay. As always, I appreciate everyone being here. Some of you might be the first time watching this live stream. I sometimes do them just so, again, usually post video. But sometimes if I find a topic to discuss, I'll just pop up. Sometimes that's why you need to subscribe to this channel, to be honest. That's to be notified of when this happened, because it's such a spontaneous thing in my life. Like, I try to do as much of YouTube as I can, and hopefully, at least provide some content for you guys as well. But it is quite a rotation for my life, like organizing this, because I have my work, then YouTube, then my own novel, and then like a few other projects on the side. So it's like a constant rotation. So now that I've done the YouTube video, I can now chill and focus on the novel. And after a few weeks, I jump to the script for the next video. And all the time, there's also working. So it's exciting stuff, but it keeps me motivated, and I hope it helps you. Yeah, I see a lot of new faces in the chat as well. As usual, feel free to ask me any questions you want. Normally, I ramble about a topic until someone asks me a specific question, and then I ramble about that. To avoid any kind of copyright strikes or anything, I try to avoid showing videos or playing music. So it's just gonna be my voice. If you want to put some music on, put it on yourself on a second tab. Aside from that, you can do other things and just listen to me ramble. And it's always, I think I'm getting better at this. I think just me speaking is, like, reading scripts is now getting a little bit easier for me. Every time I make a new video, it just feels like I do the voice recording much faster than the previous one. So I'm glad I'm also improving here. Very needed video. Yep, people are enjoying this video, and I feel like it's needed because the more time I spend on my Discord page, and the more I meet a lot of people in the Discord voice, or just seeing a lot of projects, I see the same things happening again and again. Same sort of problems that I wanted just to address in this video, just to sort of, skip over all that part about, people being defensive about the writing, people thinking that they're the next Lord of the Rings, and they're not. Anyone who joins my server normally are not at the stage where they would be writing Lord of the Rings. If they were, they wouldn't be in the server. It's kind of like you're at the start of the race right now, and you're coming in here with like this idea that, yeah, there are people who will listen to me and they will give me some feedback, and they might not know everything, but at least I'll get someone to read it. And that's a very important part about anyone who's being creative. It's I don't know if I said that in my video. It's like, as a writer, the only thing that makes you a writer is a reader. Like, you can write as much as you want, but if there's no reader to read it, then how can you claim that you're a writer? Because no one knows that it exists. No one sees your work. So really important to actually get your writing across, and it helps a lot to have someone else's story to read, and then I can talk about it with something tangible. When someone comes in with ideas and they float around, it's like, oh, I want to write a story about this, I want to write a story about that. I'm like, just do it, just write it, and then we can talk about something tangible that you wrote. And and then later on I might make a video explaining like what to avoid in terms of writing your first one, just focusing on the prose, focusing on how to deliver stories, what might be the cheat codes to speedrun that thing, speedrun some of the like things that stop you from continuing your writing. Let's have a look at some of the chats. Just have a look. Let's start a bit from the beginning. I felt like your second point wasn't really helpful. It was about if your reader doesn't understand, I feel like often this has more to do with the reader than the text. It might be. What that mindset is saying is that assume that it isn't. Assume that they're smarter and they're just the reason why they're confused is not because they're dumb, is because something went missing. Something is wrong in your prose. Something is wrong in the way you presented the idea. And this has happened in a few stories that we read on Discord where the author is like, I wanted this character to be, a very, sort of a strict character, but a loving character. But the actions that they did conveyed a very different idea, of what this character, I started joking that he's a sort of a psycho. Why does he hate, this character? He's like, no, it's not meant to be hate the character. It's meant to be like, super caring about it. I'm like, that does not translate. I don't know what you assume it did, but it didn't. And that happens sometimes when you write one idea, like it just doesn't work out because in your mind it works, what you intended, but your prose didn't translate that, and that's where the things start to fall apart. So when you say, assume your writer, that your reader knows more, is like, I don't understand this, and you don't go like, let me explain to you what I thought, because that means you're never going to be around. You're never going to be around that reader again in the same ways. Like you can't explain to everyone like what you intended to do. Your writing has to work on its own, has to survive on its own. And if that intention is not clear, maybe you need to highlight it more. Maybe you do need to say like a bit more overtly, more obviously. And that's what I mean. Because I don't like the idea like the reader just doesn't get it and I'm gonna skip over that reader. Yeah, maybe. So for example, someone, I don't want to mention names, they'll know if they're watching. Someone said, I'm giving your video a 7 out of 10 because I didn't like the fast-paced editing. And I'm like, is there anything wrong with the fast-paced editing? It's like, no, I just don't like it. And I'm like, fair enough. Like, yeah, maybe you don't like it. And maybe I need to slow it down, but I'm doing it for copyright purposes, just to keep everything under 3 seconds. So the editing does become a little bit hectic. But it might be something that like it's unavoidable. And it's just going to be I might think about it differently. At least someone brought it up to me. And whether I choose to acknowledge it or not is up to me. But the fact is that the person said that and I can take it into consideration. So when people say like, oh, I didn't like this character or I didn't like this plot beat, I'm like, why? Can I ask why? And they're like, oh, this character wasn't relatable enough. And like, maybe that's my intention, maybe it is a problem that I might need to think about. But in the end, you're the one who's deciding. All you're hearing is like what these people are offering you. So that's how I see feedback, is just getting the impression, and you have to mitigate those impressions, because again, as I said, what they say sometimes isn't exactly what they mean. Sometimes they might say, I thought that what would be a good example? I thought that the story was going very slow. It's very and slow is an hour. Like, how do you measure slow? Like the reader will not tell you how that is achievable. It just means maybe there wasn't enough happening in the story. Maybe the characters were not doing anything exciting, so it felt slow. And this happened again in people who read my first drafts of my novel. They were saying this as well. They were saying like, okay, the first 3 chapters are super slow. You don't need to spend this much time, and I agreed. And that's because I didn't know where I was going with the story yet. I had to sort of feel out the characters at that point. But that was for me. That's not, the reader doesn't care. Like me feeling out the characters. They need to be like, okay, tell me what these characters are about. And, that increases the pacing because I am more focused on how they would react and what's actually important for them to know, for the reader to know about at that point. But when they say slow, it's like, how do I interpret that? Does that mean like the characters are not, like, do I cut some scenes out, or do I shorten the paragraphs, or what do I do? How do I interpret this? And the audience will never tell you. They'll just say it's slow. Or maybe you're right. Maybe, and if you want it to be slow, let's say you want to do a slow burn and they say it's slow, well then it's not a critique, it's a compliment. It's like, yes, it is slow. Thank you. Or I found this character very creepy. Like, great, thank you. That's what I wanted. So great. Let's see. You mentioned just right. Don't do the well. This plays off in season 5 thing. But how do you get better at writing your stories and not butcher the start to a larger story you're building? How do you get better at writing your stories and not butcher the start? Mention just right and don't do that. This is season 5 is a very obvious one. Is people overthink? They bring building this entire world where the scene might only take place in a very remote location. It's the frame. It's like you can't have an endless canvas, so you have to decide what's going to be in this canvas that you're writing. Essentially, you can't go outside the frame, and if it's not needed for that frame, you don't think about it. You don't worry about it. You know, there's a character. You just need to focus on what your story is about, and normally that's where the biggest problem is. People who do a lot of world building and people who do a lot of like character creation and tone setting, they don't know the story yet, which is what one of the points I mentioned. Do you have a story? It's like if they knew what the conflict and resolution is, if I say the character is going seeking revenge, and in the end he finds the revenge, well then that my world that I'm building is going to be only focused on that aspect. What does he need to obtain the revenge? Maybe he meets an ally who wants also get the main, the villain that he has to defeat. Maybe there's someone opposing that is preventing him from reaching. Maybe he gets sent into, gets flung across the entire kingdom and he has to find his way back. And all these things are building, but it's leading you down this direction. So I don't need the 5 seasons to get the revenge, or even if I end my book without him getting revenge and I'm saying like, okay, my adventure still continues, that's great, but at least all the journey that has been already contained has been already set up and explained. And if he does achieve his revenge and you're like, I want to make a sequel about this character, I'm like, great. How does he, now we have a different conflict. We have a story about a character who achieved his revenge, but now has nothing to live for. So maybe the second book is about this character entering the world where he's looking for meaning in life now that he has achieved his revenge. And that's a different story now. See what I mean? And then season 3, maybe this character found a meaning in life, and now maybe a bigger villain comes around and tries to destroy the world. So now he's fighting not for revenge, but to protect what he found in the second book. So you can have endless amount of stories with the same character if you want. I don't recommend it, but it is possible. I much prefer the Silent Hill method where every book is a different character because it's just a bit more fun rather than just get locked in on the same characters. But it's doable. I don't fall in love with my characters the same way. I like them, but I would just kill them if I feel like it's gonna make much more of an impact to the reader. Right now, in my writing stage, it's like I'm still trying to make the reader fall in love with my characters. I don't need to worry about killing them yet, if I do want to. This feels like a race to the bottom to make sure your audience understands, so it fills it with exposition. It's can feel sometimes, and you don't have to dumb it down. If you say like you just need to understand your audience, and again, you can't appeal to all of the audience. You'll never be able to. You're just deciding on what your creative intent is and whether that creative intent was achieved at least has been noticed by at least someone. So if you have more people to review your work, then you have more opinions. And if like 6 out of 10 people are saying I didn't get it, is that enough for you? Is that enough for you to change? Or if there's like 2 out of 10 people who say I didn't get it, but then the rest got it, I'm like, well, then it's a percentage thing. How much do you need to edit? Maybe it is the problem with the other 2 reviewers who didn't get it. So let's have a look at the chat, see if there's any other thing. Oh my god, you're all speeding through this, but I really enjoy when there's I have this little document so I can write things, and I have a whiteboard as well to explain anything if needed. It's just for now it's just going to be the white document. I don't know, just right. Let's see. Want to become an artist and art at the same time. Want to become writer and artist at the same time. Okay, it's challenging. I want to be a chef and a pianist, and you're like, well, it's percentage. Again, everything is a percentage thing. How much are you going to invest? You only have certain amount of hours, and how many hours are you going to invest in one and the other? That's all you need to think about. Is it worth it for you to spend this hours learning one thing, or is it better to learn? Um, is better to learn two things with less quality. It's up to you to decide, because that's what you're doing in your life, is deciding how much percentage you're going to spend on one thing. So when you're playing video games, you're spending a lot of the time that you could have been using something to do something creative or learn a skill or something to gain. But of course, you might be stressed out and you might take that break because you just mitigate that time better. And once you figure those things out, then I think that life becomes a little bit easier. But when you're young, especially if you're like under 20, you can do many things. You can try things as long as you figure out whether you like it or not, and you can drop it immediately. There's nothing wrong with that. I've tried many things. I tried sports, I tried art, I tried music, I learned violin and guitar. Not great. I just learned the basics, and I was like, nah, not for me. I can't invest any more time in this. But I'm glad I did. It gave me a little bit of idea of how things work and how, like, what I liked. And this is an example in terms of writing. When I learned to play the violin, I realized how precise your fingers have to be to get the right note. I was like in a guitar, you can basically press the chord and it sort of gives you a good sound. You don't need, it doesn't destroy everything you just try to play immediately. You can still make the mistakes, but in violin, if you're just a millimeter off, it just goes just utter pain, just complete pain. So I really like that concept, and spoiler alert as well for if anyone's gonna read my novel at some point, is there's an instrument. It's a fantasy instrument called a pichara, as I call it. At the moment, it's called that, but it's an instrument that can mimic many different sounds, and it's kind of like a violin mixed with a guitar. But the only people who can play are in my fantasy world are the Drakan, who have the claws, and because they're so sharp, is that they can press the right vibrations, they can create the right vibrations for this instrument. So it's not only creating this idea like he can play amazing things, and he can mimic sounds, and he can mimic, there's magic involved with it as well. But that's the key thing that I learned, is the precision it takes, and that's what it separates that instrument for them. It's their instrument, and if you want to listen to this instrument, you have to accept them into kind of your world, and it's a great little moment for that I only thought that idea up is because I tried the violin. So yeah, it's good to try out different things when you're young, so because you then get a vast knowledge, which can inspire you to do other things as well, or can incorporate. Like martial arts is great for, again, many skills, discipline, and really great for dialogue. Like there's so much gym humor. Like when you're training with martial arts and fighters and so on, their attitude is interesting to watch. Their how they fight is on, like what you learn, how they get annoyed if you don't let them win every now and then, how you get annoyed when they beat you up, and you can get those emotional expressions and just translate them into your writing. Again, no useless knowledge when it comes to that kind of those experiences. Sorry if I'm holding back a little bit on the chat. I need to speed things up. Where were we? Follow through, consistency. Want to become a writer? Follow through and consistency are things writers need to do. How can you learn if you don't write? Sure, theory and craft lessons help, but it's like trying to learn skateboarding without skating. Yes. Follow through and consistency. Yep, you just need to keep going, keep doing it. It's not what I do also get annoyed a little bit by, and this is not really a huge thing, but I don't like the idea of turning writer into a fashion statement, or I like I'm a writer is like becoming like I'm a furry, or I'm a this, or I'm a that, I'm a emo. A writer is more like I'm a person who writes. It's not it shouldn't be your entire identity. And it's really amusing when I watch YouTubers and they have the blazers and turtlenecks and like a bookshelf behind them, and they're like, I'm a writer. Like, what did you write? Don't worry about it. It's like, yeah. Again, I can't say much because I haven't written a fully like a novel, a published novel or anything like that. I'm just didn't have. I had other things to do in my life, but now I feel like I'm more confident to actually try it. So I'm very happy with that, and it's going well. But I don't make this my identity, and I kind of wish that people stop doing it because all they do is then feel even more regret when they decide it's not for them. So now you got to get rid of your identity when you realize that maybe writing is not for me. It's like, yeah, now you have to change your entire identity. It's like, oh, your entire persona that you build upon. Uh, you can have multiple season payoffs. You just have to have a planned journey in every season for every season that comes before. Yeah, like I don't understand intentionally putting like we were talking this in the Discord in the Discord voice chat yesterday. Is Marvel movies, despite having all these like stages, didn't actually plan so far ahead. At most, they had after credits saying we need to establish Shield, and that's it. That's all their goal was. And the after credits says like, "Oh, Iron Man, we need your help." Cuts to black, and that's all because they haven't decided what they're gonna do, but they just want to have this just in case they do have something. That's all you need to do when it comes to setting up for the next season. It's like, or if you don't have that at all, you have a lot of minor characters that you probably did add it into your story, in your first story, let's say. It's great. Have them come back in the second story as like some more important characters. Maybe you met a hobo in your character meets a hobo in a town, and he's like, spare some change, and your character's like, okay, I'll give you a quarter, and you never see that character again. But then the second book is like, oh, I became a lord. I remember you. You gave me that quarter, and I need a quest. You need to do the quest, and that's your callback to the previous book. Just as an example is how minimum you can do to connect the things. And let's say you didn't have that idea for a book, but you wrote plenty of interesting characters and interesting locations where you'd be happy to go back there. Let's have a look. As I said, don't worry about it. The worst thing you can do in setting up the seasons is like, how will this affect season 2 or season 3? If book wise is you write book 1, but you're also already collecting ideas for book 2. It's one of the master classes. I forgot who it was, but they said, publishers, if you're trying to publish a book, and again, this is not from my first hand experience, this is someone else telling me this. When you're publishing the first book, it's very nice to have for the publisher or for the agent to say like, I have another idea, like I'm already writing it down, for this one. So that's how it's sort of, you can tease it already. Like it's good to have that second book in mind, but don't let it stop you from writing the first one. First one, self-contained story, beginning, middle, end. Conflict, he resolves it, great. Everyone's had a good time enjoying it. Means you can do it. So that's awesome. And then you can do the sequel. The ideas will come to your head, they come to mind. But if you start thinking about it and give it too much grandiose, you take away resources from the original story, and that's where I think this is the huge problem. Ooh, a super chat! Wow! Let's have a look. Someone skipped the queue and gets the first one. Thank you for the super chat. Really enjoyed yesterday's video. Recently watched an anime, Odd Taxi, which I thought was great. Keep up the good work. I watched Odd Taxi. It's another great anime. It's one of those animes where you almost feel like not a lot is happening, but there's so much happening. And the way the stories sort of weave together is the correct. The stories weave together very neatly, and I don't want to spoil too much, but there's just one great story, which is a very side story. It's not in any way connected to the main story, but then that character comes up in the main story. It's actually affecting the main characters. And you realize because you were given that time with this little side character, you understand why he's acting the way he does in the main plot line. But he doesn't get involved into the main plot line. Taxi is a very, very interesting anime. I really enjoyed it. And the dialogue there is very strong. It's nothing like the typical anime dialogue where it's a character describes how they feel and then and the different character says, "Wow, I can't believe you did that." A lot of repetitive dialogue. is typical in anime, but that one doesn't have it. It is very natural. So yeah, Otaxi is a good call out. Thank you, and thank you for the super chat again. Da-da-da. Where were we now? The thing. Do you plan on reviewing other media like Digital Circus or Rings of Power? Rings of Power, I already have Galadriel versus Frieren. That pretty much states a lot of my ideas on Rings of Power. You don't necessarily need me to review it because you, based on the movies, on the videos I make, you can get a pretty good idea of what I think about those shows. Rings of Power is a confusing mess. I don't know what their intention was. I don't know. There's no, you know what it was? There's no one in charge in that show. That's the biggest problem. There's no one with a vision in charge of Rings of Power. It was just a lot of heads trying to like fiddle around with. And I think Amazon has this problem where they have a lot of ideas like faffing around, but no one's taking the lead in mitigating those ideas. Like Hasbin Hotel is that example. It's like Vivzi should have been the person to decide what ideas stay and what ideas go, but she wants everything. She wants everything as much as she can, and that's her desire. She doesn't have that, like, okay, maybe we don't need this yet. Or we can, there's curation, it's called. You're curating the ideas of which good for go and which one you would like to have, but they're probably not going to end up in there. You prioritize these things, and that's part of writing. You decide on these things. It's like, is it important for my character to be in another town where he learns, the value of, friendship? It's like, well, it's a cool town, but like we already have him learning that lesson in a different town. Does he need to repeat that same lesson? Maybe not. And as much as I like the cool town that we go in and the story that goes there, you might have to take the resource. We have to focus the resource on something else, and that's how I see it. And then Rings of Digital Circus as well. I was watching the Digital Circus, and my episode 1 I really disliked, and episode 2 I really disliked. For those shows, and 3 I sort of watched it, but I had no opinion. I think 4 is the hamburger one, is the where they're in the fast food restaurant. That one started to like turn me around a little bit, not completely, because I'll quickly describe. Number 1, episode 1 was a tour. It's me. Characters are like showing the tour to another character, and for some reason, we should also care about this thing happening. Like, look at all the weird stuff, and now this is this thing, and now this is this thing, and you don't really get an idea of where the story is actually going. There's just a lot of concepts that are there to get our attention, and I dislike that. I really hate I call them field trip or tour episodes. Hasbin Hotel has that, where it's like Charlie goes in and shows the hotel again. It's like, why do we need to see let's see if it's functioning. Don't here's this place, here's the lobby, here's the bedrooms, here's the toilet. I'm like, why do we need to know about this right now? Why can't Serpentius just go in and the doors close and then the plot continues? We can assume or infer that he got the guide. But no, it's because the author wants to show off how cool the hotel is. And if there was something unique and cool, then great. But if there isn't, then, whatever. Did someone else leave a super chat? Also, yeah, Digital Circus. The reason why the burger one actually started to feel like something more valuable is because characters were allowed to be flawed and be vulnerable. One of the things that I really annoyed is Jax as a character at the beginning to, I don't know, about 3 episodes. Jax never got any comeuppance for being a jerk. And I hate that concept where a character can be a jerk to everyone, and then no one cares. Everyone just still treats him like a friend, or just like, and he's not like a quirky, fun jerk who just like jokes around. He actively pushes, like, whatever the masked girl is, he pushes her, and the camera stays on this shot to make it feel almost like, whoa, like this is not a nice guy, not a pleasant guy. And because he doesn't earn anything, he doesn't pay the consequences for that. He doesn't, you just like, so he's just gonna get away with it. And like, it's not, you could do that, but it's not as satisfying. And in episode 4, I think it is, that the burger one, he's actually like starting to get bored. He's starting to suffer a little bit, and he's starting to open up to the vulnerabilities a little bit. And you're like, ooh, like, this is interesting. I want to see that. I want to see why he's a jerk. I don't care that, like, it's not funny for me to watch him being a jerk. I want to know what makes him this jerk. Why does he? And again, jerks characters are normally just been hurt themselves, and they're sort of expressing it in that way. They don't want to have anyone close to them because they don't want to be hurt. That's normally for the jerk characters, is that, and not always, but like a usual concept. So that's where it started to open up for me. It's like, okay, Jax is finally getting something, some vulnerabilities. Some he's just not the quirky character that everyone's supposed to love to hate. But I haven't fully watched all the Digital Circus. I skipped a few episodes. For now, anyway. Someone leave me a super chat? Oh, yeah, thank you. It's our favorite writing guru. No, I'm not a guru. Haktui. I'm not a guru. Don't believe it. And the reason why I like the Muay Thai analogy, I am basically just the writing equivalent of a pad coach. I'm not here to tell you or teach you like a lecture. I'm just like, right? Imagine you hitting the pads is the writing. You hit the pads, and then I maybe adjust like where you might want to improve. I might say like this and this doesn't quite work or whatever, and then okay, now you hit the pads again. Now you hit the pads again. Okay, now it works. Now it looks okay. That's kind of what I see. I'm not here to like teach anyone to be amazing. I just want people to be passionate about how much you can achieve with writing. Like if you write, a sentence and it's like, he felt upset or he felt sad about losing his father. I'm like, let's make it better. How can we do that? The loss of his father harmed him greatly, like affected him greatly. How can we make this even better? And you find it in many different ways. And at some point you might stop and say, that's enough. I think that's good enough for now. And then you continue. And then the next sentence comes around and you see, like, instead of writing, he walked to the store, he picked up the bread, he walked to the aisle, he checked it out, he left the store, he, every sentence starts with he. And like, how do we vary it up? As he entered the store, his eyes glanced to the bread aisle, scanning for his favorite, full grain bread. He grabbed it, he grabbed it with determination. Again, just random thoughts right now. It's like he grabbed with sheer determination but as he walked to the checkout aisle, he realized he doesn't have his wallet, looking around confused. And now you're building a story where it's like, okay, now it's not just a character you're telling me what the character's actions are. You're actually developing something a bit more intimate. You're like, which bread does he pick? What, does he have a wallet? Maybe he forgot. How does he deal with that? And he looks at, and then you want to introduce another character. He sees, Mary Jade, his neighbor, and then you go, Mary, like, hi, nice to meet you. He's like, oh, I forgot my wallet, can you get me the bread? Like suddenly it becomes a story because you introduced a little bit of a disruption to his normal life. And you then figure out like what could help him, and then you introduce a different character, and so on. And it's like, yeah, something mundane becomes something a bit more personal, something intimate. Let's see. Rings of Power. Oh, I see. Sorry. I also really like the idea of asking questions about why they feel that way. Yeah, it's game designer. Game designers do that. I don't see why writers shouldn't. Game designers let the characters, let the beta testers play it, and then ask, "What do you think?" And then they give feedback, and you write it down, and then you go back to the drawing board. I don't see why writers can't do the same, and I'm guessing beta readers do that, and they do. Yeah, as I said, I have 4 of them right now for my story, and they all give me different feedbacks, and I'm glad they do. Really appreciate when someone reads, because giving a reader is not a right. It's a sort of a privilege. Getting a reader to read your story is, you have to sort of thank them and say like, I'm really happy you gave it a time of your life to read my story. So I have an obligation. To make this an enjoyable experience for you. It's not about indulging me or you calling me a great whatever. It's about how do you feel, and if your time was spent wisely reading my story, and that's all I care about when I write. Is like, how do I get you? I want you to feel sad, and how do I get you there? Because that's what the experience I want you to have. How do I get you excited? How do I get you this? And if I just write like, oh, my character is so cool and he kills everyone with one shot, like what is the reader gaining out of this? Nothing. He's getting like, okay, cool, good to know, good to know. Anywho, any movie or book recommendations to learn better writing? Well, book recommendations you can find on my description. There's a list of authors that I recommend to read the fundamentals of storytelling. Like, these are people who are academically done the research, who are scholars who have been peer reviewed, and they know what they're talking about. They apply the methodologies. They know the structure of a story. They know the structure of filmmaking. If you want visual language, they know the methodology in which you write. They're not going to give you like, to write a more interesting character, you have to make them complex and endearing. I'm like, what does that mean? I don't know how to like. I was like, now we're introducing this different aspect. So those are what I get annoyed by, the gurus who go like, yeah, I'll tell you how to make your character interesting. Make them more interesting. It's like, cool, very useful. Very, very useful. Like, and you'll see it once you start looking what they're actually saying, and that's like, what do you mean? It's like, you need to make your stories a bit more engaging and exciting, and add some drama and conflict to it. Like, yeah, cool. Anything specific? When no, just add those things. It's like, but what do you mean? Like, I added. It's like, is it good now? I don't know. It's like it's so abstract. Like, it's such abstract advice. Well, my job is just to get you to do the thing, and then once you start writing, you'll start to like get a better idea of what you can and cannot do. If you see me reading and then I cringe at like, oh, it's the same word again in the same sentence. That's why the Shadow of the Conqueror line is great. We light bringers bring as much brightness as we can bring. Just bring, repetition, repetition. And then you imagine the world in a fantasy world where characters are talking like that. They use the R word in a fantasy world. Those would not exist. And Martin does it differently, where he goes like, he was not sound of mind. He was the Mad King. They used such words that are fantasy. Words that were used back in those times, or at least the fantasy world of those days. But if you just go, YOLO swag, he be tripping yo in a fantasy world. I'm like, no. Yeah. Let's see. But movie recommendations, again, classic. Godfather is a great movie. Many. I think I made a top 10 list somewhere. I can put it on my Discord as well. Blade Runner is my favorite. If you want to like movie recommendations, if you want the classic films, there's a called The Bicycle Thief. It's an Italian film, and that is such a simple story. It's like, again, it's about someone steals a dad's bike, and he and his son go to try to find it because they need that bike for work, and you will get such emotional trauma from the story. Is beautiful. But it's not just that, it's the way they compose and frame the characters. Look who gets separated, who gets pushed into the frame, who gets pushed out of the frame. The frame is being, working all the time to like make you feel a certain feeling, and they spend time on that frame as opposed to cutting. So yeah, Bicycle Thief is for cinematography. Obviously, 12 Angry Men. If you haven't seen it, it's another must watch. In a small room, look who's in the frame, who's out of the frame. You'll see like who's agreeing, who's disagreeing, who's changing their opinion based on like the coats that they're hanging, the heat that is coming off. Like, the heat is the literal heat, but it's also the heated debate that's happening. There's the literal and the metaphorical in there. Yeah, great. Blade Runner is again one of my favorite movies. I think it is. No, The Godfather Part 2 is still my favorite movie. Followed by Blade Runner. Gladiator, excellent film. Many films that you probably heard and you probably seen, but just watch them as a filmmaker does, and you'll see like how much actually effort there's put into the frame. RoboCop is very good because it emphasized it overemphasized certain points by using shadows, by using the lighting, by using just the framing to make the RoboCop much more intimidating. it's over exaggerated, but then you can see actually the details in which they are presenting those, visual storytelling in that way. By the way, how many? Oh God, I hope I'm keeping up with the chats. Wolf Mother, by the way, is another excellent film to watch, an anime. Further than, I forgot what it's called. A Place Further in the Universe is another anime that's very, very, very visually visually, what you call it, uses visual storytelling. That's how I want to present it. It uses a lot of visual storytelling, and it captures a lot of the great emotional moments for the characters. Serial Experiments Lane, that's gonna warp your mind. You'll be like, what is happening? I don't understand. And then you watch it again and again, and things are starting to like make sense more and more. I think never have before used the write it down gif when we were watching it together in Serial Experiments Lane in the Discord. So yeah, Serial Experiments Lane, highly recommend. By the way, I would highly recommend read Transformers Skybound comics. It have one of the best writing ever written recently. Unfortunately, I'm not much of a comic reader nor a Transformers reader. There are people who are, but I might not be one of them, unfortunately. I was also saying, I didn't say this in my video, but when I was making my video, I realized that for beginner writers, one of the easiest places to start as just writing, just to get into the habit of writing a story, would be a sports story about a character who wants to be the best, and he goes to whatever a location to learn. He meets other characters and he perseveres. It's such a simple structure and you can then create like, how do I make this more interesting? Let's make this character this way. Let's make the reason why he wants to be the best. Maybe it's not just like Goku style where he wants to be the best fighter. Maybe he has a promise for a promise to a sick mother that he will be the best, or maybe, and then you'll start to learn to pick apart the elements it takes to tell a story. And I think one of the easier ones is to actually get into the sports genre than anything sci-fi, fantasy. Those are fairly complicated because you get a little bit overly excited with the world building and the character building over actually story structure. But like sports anime, you pick a sport, anything. One of the ideas that I was me and my friend were pitching is called Wall Street High, which is like Yu-Gi-Oh! GX but with stocks. There's a character named Mako Yumani who's trying to basically live up to his father, who's a big CEO, a big investment firm CEO, and he's going to the Wall Street High to like become the best stock investor trader he can become. But the difference is that while other people see stocks as just like things, the prices, he actually sees them as, people and so on. And he has this personality where he is very sociable, and he uses that knowledge that he meets the companies that, it's all a little bit more like, again, Yu-Gi-Oh! GX is like the good, kind-hearted character goes into the school of, highly profit-driven people. And he realizes that to achieve profit, you have to be, you have to care about what you're investing against, and that's what, and that's why he makes friends and so on. That was the story where we were playing around with, Wall Street High, and it also teaches about stock investing. So it was just one of those ideas that were just funny to play around with. And you could make it like the stocks going up and down would be like monsters that it's visually would be much more grandiose. But it's like it's essentially, again, another sports anime. It's a character with a dream, has to do his best, and he enters a new world. There's rivals. He fails, he wins, yada yada. You have all those same moments, but how you make it yours is the more interesting part. Let's have a look. What else do we have? Oh yeah, make sure to hit that like button, by the way, if you can. It always helps out. Also have a Ko-Fi page if you want to support. I don't know what to do with it yet. I don't know whether to offer, story review services, whatever. At the moment, I'm just chilling in the Discord and I help out when I can, but eventually, whether people would need that as a service or not, I don't know. I don't know how much I would have to invest, but if you want to support the channel, super chats are always acceptable. Ko-fi, buy me a coffee, all that good stuff. To your abilities, like I'm happy to help out if I can. I don't necessarily have a process of monetizing this, Evan, this pursuit right now. But it's funny. I'm happy to see like early investments in terms of storytelling. Like there's a few animators who came to me in DMs and asked me like, "Can you check a look at our script? What do you think?" And I gave them feedback, and I probably completely destroyed their schedule by saying like, "Ooh, this needs a lot of work." But I think they're happy for it because they know that they can get more out of their story now, and that means they won't waste time animating something subpar. So glad to hear that. I'm trying to help out when I can, but we'll see. If you find value in these videos, if you find value in these live streams, of course, feel free to support it. No pressure. But besides that, let's have a look at the other comments. Writing process, draft, print, blue prototype. During the redrafting phase, you can then set the seeds. After me, okay, this is still talking about the season 5 thing. Hey Trent, thanks for the video. I think it's kind of needed. I've been trying to explain the backstory of my world without really starting the story. Yeah, I still like the world build, but I got carried away. Many people do. Many people do realize that world building is exciting. It's fun. It's useless if you don't have a story. Nothing I could say. Like, I don't even do world building in my story. My world is being built as I write the story. If my character needs to learn about valuing something, he's going to be in a town where that opportunity is given. And if I can create the town around the idea of value, then I can make the world building. I don't need to worry about the towns that they go. I have a general name. The names even don't stick around because I'll think of a better name by the time I reach that stage. If I have the character, if I need a character to, like, if a character is very defensive, like he's very much a character who keeps his distance from other people, maybe he has a magic ability that allows him to either teleport or what, if it's a fantasy, of course, story. Then I add that magic system to the character if I want to highlight that character flaw. I don't need to create a magic system because I don't need it yet. I need to know what my stories are. But people like creating the magic system because it's fun. It has no consequences to the story. And people say, oh, but you need to have the Lord of the Rings has a lot of things about Hobbit, and I'm like, yes, but he probably wrote a lot about the actual journey to of the hobbits, and then he added all the Hobbiton information, all this, like Tolkien. Same with Martin, he probably knew he researched the War of Roses for Game of Thrones, and he applied the same knowledge that he has about the characters, about so on, to create the mystical. He just made it fantasy, and I like his little comment. When you're writing fantasy, it's just normal world, but like scale it up. So if it's just a Hadrian's Wall, which is a small little wall, and then you scale it up to this massive grandiose thing, that's all you need to do. If a character is this personality, make it bigger, make it more intimidating. If he's a tough guy, make him giant. That's the idea. How he says how he comes up with the fantasy elements. I'll scroll. Still many comments. Don't worry about it. I'll get them. I'll get there. If I feel a delay, that's why. What I'm saying is, if I have a story of a bajillion books already paced out, but I'm not good at dialogue pacing, scene writing, how do I get book 1 done without making it a terrible start to the saga? Well, that's where your prose comes in. It's one of those things that none of the writing gurus ever talk about is prose, or at least I haven't seen it writing, because I was like, oh, my prose is garbage. And the reason why my prose is normally garbage is because I started off as a screenwriter. my scripts were written like screenplays. So I only needed to give a direction to the character when I'm writing the screenplay. That's my main goal. And if you read my like little rewrite of Aspen Hotel, the episode 1, it's on my Ko-Fi page as well, you will see that my type of prose, at least in screenplays, is very directional. Like the camera pans down to show this. The character walks in, they look concerned. It's very plain because I know that the animators will make this much better. I know that the cinematographer will make this the way I want it to. Like I'm already thinking the way that I'm a director. So my screenplays are very much instructional. But then when I started writing a novel, I applied the same prose to my novel, and it became very like he walks up there, he picks up this, he does this. And then I started learning about prose, and I started learning from other authors. Gene Wolfe is like my little hero. I hate him and love him. Like he wrote Shadow of the Torture, which I read, and now I'm reading the sequel. Book of the New Sun, I think it's called. Books is the main, and it's great because it fits my what I'm trying to do in my novel, because it's a first person storyteller, unreliable narrator, recounting his adventures, recounting his stories, which is what I'm doing in mine. So it works great for me, and it's in a fantasy setting, so it's perfect. And I'm just learning from him. I'm just learning his prose, because that's the intention I want to have. And sometimes I disagree with how he achieves some story elements, or like the story not going anywhere. I have annoyed by that, but I'm reading in for the prose. I'm reading and trying to understand why he would do this and this and this. And until I started reading the second book is where I realized that, oh, maybe the first book wasn't as bad as I thought it was, And then I started, picked up Dune again, started to reading Dune, just to, again, focusing on how those ideas are being translated. I know the story, I know the plot of Dune. I don't need to worry about getting the feeling for it. Now I'm studying the prose. How do they structure the sentences? How are they bringing those ideas? And those authors, Frank Herbert is extremely experimental with his writing. Like his sentence structures are so unique. Like I'm never gonna kind of mimic that. I don't need to. That's not my goal. But I'm reading the saying, what can you do with your prose? And you can do a lot. And you can praise the pacing as well. I struggle with pacing a lot. Is because I think I need those details. So if someone backpack is my trigger word now, because I focus so much on this useless backpack, where the character takes a piece of cheese essentially out of a backpack, and I give it 2 paragraphs almost, like no, that backpack is not that important. So that backpack that needs to get cut immediately. But I was just having fun, as I said, with the prose. I didn't know what I was doing, to be honest, with the prose. Dialogue writing again is difficult. Dialogue is the easiest part for me because, again, screenwriter perspective. Dialogue is the key thing to and making it sound, because the visuals are telling the story, so the dialogue is just there to emphasize certain points but not explain them. So the dialogue needs to be a little bit more tighter. In novel writing, dialogue also needs to be tighter, but it is allowed to be more explanatory. Giving your characters a distinct voice is very useful. One of the readers on my Discord who read my story noticed that a character changes accent from from one chapter to the other chapter. And that's because I decided, instead of giving it another sort of royal Queen's English voice, I wanted to make him into more like a peasant. And his accent becomes more like as I described, a pirate. Because he's a sailor, so he speaks with ye and though, and that gives you a distinct voice. Because the worst thing you can do is make your character sound like you all the time. And all the characters just sound the same. No, if one is a rich person, a noble, they would speak like a noble. If one is a peasant, they will speak like a peasant, and the two would have to have a very different type of communication. Same with perspectives and so on. And the contrasting characters you have, as long as you have contrasting characters, your dialogue should be able to sort of capture that. But yes, you're right. I'm not good at dialogue, pacing, and scene. what I can do is just learn from other writers. That's all you can do really, and figure out why they're doing the things they're doing. That's the best option I can give you. What are some ways to network with people like writers, editors, artists online? I mainly look on social media and Discord servers. Yeah, that's how you do it. There are a few people on the Discord you might help you out with that, but one of the reasons why, and again, I have to praise Wibsy on this compared to me. I'm not exactly the most networky person. I had plenty of bad experience with networking sort of events and so on, and I'm not particularly confident talking in a network because I feel like I'm shilling my work to someone, and I feel like this bad feeling in my stomach when I try to do it. Like, oh, I'm looking for an artist. Like, for me, it's like the only thing only way I want to hire an artist is just like I'll pay him money. But there are a lot of people who are willing to do it for free if they believe in your project. But I just never feel comfortable asking for like, oh, an artist, can you draw this? Can you draw this? Because I feel like I'm wasting their time with my selfish request. But there are people, like I said, who do it. Who are like, I'm an animator. I need a voice actor, and they go meet people, and the other people are much willing to try it out because they want to be voice actors. So you're giving them the opportunity to actually try their own skills, and it's great. That's what separates sometimes animators who succeed and who fail are the people who network, are the people who meet other people with different skills, And I'm not exactly, as I said, the reason why I wouldn't be probably not a good in the writing team. Like if you want to hire me in the writing team, it's probably going to be no one's going to like me because I don't fluff, I don't fluff around, as they say. I don't fluff the other writers. Oh, that's an interesting idea. Let's try a different one. I'm like, ooh, like I cannot hide. Like I cannot pretend to like something. And I try to. People in my voice chat were like, no, say us how you really feel. I know you're lying. I'm like, yeah, I am. So again, in a world of Hollywood, my type of people would not be necessarily allowed. Which is my fault. I would need to improve if I wanted to be in that world. Is it a good idea to look into badly written stories on what not to do when writing a story? Sometimes. I would rather put more effort into reading good stories. I have written. For those who are watching me for a while now, they know that on my Wattpad, I have a Wattpad, and I only have one story there, which is Shadow Goes to Hell, which is Shadow the Hedgehog Goes to Hazbin Hotel, and it's an intentionally bad written story. It's my way of dealing with writer's block. Whenever I feel like I don't know what I'm writing anymore, I just write Shadow Goes to Hell, and you see a new chapter every now and then, so you know that Trent is currently in annoyed mode. And Shadow Goes to Hell is a great little story, which is just intentionally written badly. So I'm learning from some bad authors and trying to mimic some of those techniques that they use, just so I know, just an example of like what you could not do. And I can give this to people to read and say like, look, where do you think the mistakes are? I intentionally put the mistakes in there, mostly, because I try not to edit the story. I just write it as I feel it. And then once I get it out of my way, that's where I go back to the actual story that I edit and care about. But this one is just for the fun. And if you want to try out your skills, you read it and you're like, okay, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad. Ergo, there has to be a way of doing it good. And then you go to a good writer and figure out how they do it. Oh, I skipped yours, Cartoon Crate. Let's find out. Let's find yours. How do I spot plot holes in my or someone else's story? It's a skill as well. That's why a lot of critics are great at it. Plot holes are difficult to find, but when I read a story, I always come with the idea that you are taking me on a journey, right? I'm excited. I'm listening to your story, and you're telling me this promise. So every single time there's a promise. This is how I see it. I don't know whether it's an academically approved thing to say, but when you say like this character is the like why this character was from Arcane, this character was her parents were killed by enforcers. She has lived her entire life by enforcers. Hates enforcers with a passion. They have ruined her life, immensely. And that means you promised me as an author that you promised me that Vi hates enforcers. You made a promise and you're saying she's never going to trust an enforcer in any, unless something happens. And something does. She meets Caitlin. And she doesn't immediately like Caitlin. She wants to run away from her, and even when she's like already starting to enjoy like Caitlin, I'm like, I don't know. You kind of going back on the promise that she hates enforcers. You either have to convince me that this is correct, or you are failing. So you made a promise that she hates enforcers. She now likes enforcers, or at least tolerates them. I'm like, okay, it's a change. It's a good change. And then in season 2, when they're gassing their own Zonites, I would be like, you made a promise that she doesn't. She likes Caitlyn because she's not like the tyrannical enforcer that she hates, but now she is. So shouldn't Vi hate Caitlyn? Because you already told me this. You told me this, right, movie. You told me this, writers. And they're like, nah, she still loves Caitlyn. I'm like, I don't know. And that's how plot holes come around. A plot hole is just a broken promise. How big of a broken, like, as Martin points out, is like he accidentally changed the gender of a horse in Game of Thrones. Now, it's not a big deal. The story doesn't change whether that horse is male or female, particularly unless it's important. But someone pointed out, it's like it's a plot hole. It's like, and he's like, yep, it is. But good on you for catching it. I feel bad for writing it, but that's what it still hasn't hurt the story that much. So yeah, imagine, everything you write is a promise. Or imagine what you promise. Remember what you promised to your audience, and that's how you avoid the plot holes. It's like I cannot, and that's what I said. The hand of the author comes in, is you already established your character, so you cannot control some aspects because you already established those aspects of the character. So I say Batman doesn't kill, I made a promise to the audience that Batman doesn't kill, and when he kills it, people will be upset because I broke the promise. And that's that's essentially where you go, where you keep your characters consistent. So even if I want to write a character where the Batman kills someone, I have to now think, how much do I need to work up to it, and how much do I need to change the character at the beginning? I need to change that promise, because I cannot make him kill if I already promised that he doesn't kill. Because if I do, that means that the hand of the author is pushing a character to where he wouldn't go. In some ways, you don't control your characters. Even though you're writing a story, if you want to make it good, you have to let the character do what he does. There's a lot of great moments. In Gladiator, Maximus wants his revenge, and he sees I forgot who the villain was. Joaquin Phoenix, I forgot his name, or the character's name, but point is, the Emperor, he wants to kill the Emperor. He gets a piece of arrow to stab the Emperor, but he doesn't do it because there's a child in front, the son, and he has a principle, he's a principal character, and even though he wants that revenge, he's not willing to ruin the life of a kid, because he sees the son as, because he lost his family, he lost his own son, and he doesn't want to traumatize this other kid for losing the father as well. Simple character development, but it's setting up a promise that what kind of character he is, because he wouldn't just stab the main villain there, unless, again, we already established what he is. We cannot go back. And if you do, then that's your plot hole. That's your consistent character writing. Hopefully that answers the question. I'll take a drink. Definitely feels like I've had my violin moment. Yeah, exactly. Learning K-boxing has fundamentally changed my understanding of fighting. Yeah. I had 6 years of Muay Thai training, so like writing combat is very interesting for me, because I know like personalities, shorter guys have to push forward. So if you write a character who's short, what kind of fighter he might be. And I can have many of references to, like, that's why dwarfs are like so angry. They're so like angry. That's why they're so angry, and that's why they're so like trying to prove themselves. Is the shortness gives you a personality trait. they're willing to jump forward because they have to reach the enemy, and the only way they reach their enemy is by rushing forward. So they're more become these highly, small, stocky characters. It's because their physiognomy doesn't let him have the range where they would be like tall elves who can like do whatever. Their size already determines how they would act in a certain situation, especially in combat. And so it's good. I enjoy these kind of little like ideas of how to present the characters, species as just the mentality and why they would have that mentality. By the way, can you highlight the comments you are replying to? Unfortunately, no. I should set it up somehow, but I'll see. Oh my god, how many stories do we? Okay. Oh my god. Sorry, I was like, oh, I still have a few comments left, and then it scrolled down and it generated even a huge list. Oh my god. Oh boy, I guess we're staying in for the long haul here, guys, which I'm glad to do. He skipped mine. I didn't skip yours. See. What's your thoughts on H.P. Lovecraft writing? He did inspire a lot of people. I love H.P. Lovecraft. He, again, pushed a little bit in the way you think about writing. One of my favorite moments, and again, I can only describe the emotion that I felt, is when you reach a stage and he says, undescribable geometry. Like two words, I think. Undescribable geometry, I think it was. And I'm like, how, or like undescribable geometric shapes, or like shapes that did not exist. Like he uses the unimaginable to make you imagine it. Like if I told you to draw me a shape that is, a shape that doesn't exist in our world, and you're like, oh, I'll draw squiggly. Well, what is a squiggly if like not a circle or like with squares and this, like, even if you draw a random shape, it's still a shape made out of other shapes. But the way Lovecraft says, like, no, this is not, the thing you're seeing is geometry that does not exist. And I'm like, how do I imagine that? It's like saying, like, imagine being dead. I'm like, oh, you just close your eyes. No. Imagine not being able to hear, think, do this. And then you start getting this uneasy feeling in your stomach. You're like, oh, I don't know about this. And then you leave that mindset because you're asked to imagine something that you cannot imagine. And that's a very strong point in terms of his horror writing. You can see that, like, and the way the characters express, like, the feeling of, madness, the feeling, and you can relate to the character. But the actual prose is helping you. The actual prose is putting you in the same mindset of, like, confusion. So yeah, H.P. Lovecraft is an excellent writer. Some of the stories I don't particularly fancy, but because they sometimes feel repetitive. But I do recommend reading it as well. Don't get too hooked on it. He's not. He may not be the type of writer you want to mimic. It's just a very specific type of writer. Okay, now we reached the super chat, the $20 super chat. We already answered the question, so I give it a like. Wow, you are a really good artist. Wait, what? No way. Okay, these are having a conversation there. Cutting crates and Samasa. What's your opinion on subversion and what makes a good or bad one? I'm gonna need a sip of coffee for that one. I'm not a huge fan of subversions. The way they're presented nowadays in like Marvel movies and so on, or like Disney films. I don't like the idea like he is this happens, but then it doesn't. Wow, subversion. Wow, it's this angels are evil kind of mindset. Is like, it's that really the subversion? Because it's subversive in the sense that you don't expect it to be, but you're not particularly surprised that it is that way. So a subversion is meant to explain. A subversion is meant to basically make you think. How to describe this? This is a bit of a tough one. How do I? Oh, sorry, I'm thinking for a few seconds. The best way, at least when I see subversion, is when it's used to convey a character's mindset. this is again from an example from my novel. I don't want to spoil it too much, but one of the characters is a highly pragmatic character, and he's given a challenge, to fight in an honorable duel. But because he doesn't see any value in the idea of honor, he just leaves. And there's more to it than that. But the idea is that he is the type of character who would not indulge in a honorable duel. He doesn't have a reason to kill this guy. This guy is just trying to get him, but my protagonist doesn't see that as, he's not thinking the same way that that character from that world would think. So you subvert, like, he's the one of the characters setting up this like epic battle that these two are gonna have, and my character is just not falling for the bait. And it's a version from this typical like Inigo Montoya, Princess Bride scene where a character is ready to fight another character, and they have a duel and they fight, and then they learn about each other, yada yada, and then they maybe become friends in the end. And I'm like, the subversion there is not that I set this up and then it doesn't happen. Is the fact that my character is in that mindset where he wouldn't fall for this kind of setup, and that's what makes it a unique, because it's a unique character exploration. So that's how I see subversion working better. Or a cop, who wants to solve a murder, and he thinks he's got it, and suddenly he doesn't have it because the murder. Gone Girl. Gone Girl is a good example of that. I don't want to spoil exactly for it, but Gone Girl is a great subversion, because you think the story is going one way, and then you cut to the different perspective of what actually has happened. So then it recontextualizes all the drama that you saw at the beginning, and that's how I see probably subversion working better. It's recontextualizing the beginning part, and then it opens up. Fight Club, I think, is has a version as well of like the Tyler Durden and the protagonist, like the two. Once you learn the twist, you think it's one story, and then it jumps to the other one. But like Luke Skywalker picking up a lightsaber and throwing it over his shoulder is a very weak subversion, because it doesn't really go too far, because he's like, I'm not a Jedi anymore, and I'm not gonna train you. I'm throwing this lightsaber away because I give it up on that life. Anyway, let me train you. It's like, okay, so you're throwing over the lightsaber over the shoulder is meaningless because you still did what the plot required you to do. It's like, great. How far are you on your writing journey? What lessons have you learned from your drafts revision process? I wrote the hell out of like everything. Like, I wrote every day when I was a teenager. I lost sleep, but I was writing for a different purpose. I didn't write a narrative. I was writing. A lot of my writing became from basically role play, like forum-based role plays, and that really helped me in terms of thinking of what my characters can do. Because there was a lot of role plays. You had one which is like a pirate adventure, and you create your little character, and then a thread opens up, and there's some description of what's happening, and the characters interacting, and then you introduce your character, and how do you make your character engaging with the other one else. It's not a particular story. That's how I started my writing, but I got really hooked on it. It was almost addictive. But I learned to keep pushing my characters to do more, like engage more with the other characters, and that really helped me develop good dialogue writing and good character interaction scenes. What I didn't learn is structuring stories. How do I actually write a story that doesn't have, not a role play mindset? How do I actually write a structured story? And that became a typical journey. I also didn't have the mindset for the writer until I reached 28, 29, like something like that. 30s was, because I'm 33 now, if you want to know the information. I didn't have the maturity yet to write a compelling story, and now I feel like I do. So I'm actually putting more effort into writing a novel, because I feel like I have something to say. I practiced the style, idea generation for a long time, and I still do it for my work as well. I use it a bunch for my work. I still use it for other means, other purposes. I just never focused on writing a novel because I never had the structure idea. So that's the only. So in my drafts, I feel like I'm a late bloomer. I'm a late pacer. If you want to say if you want to go back to the Uma Musume analogy, the horse girl. There's like you can race ahead at the beginning, or you stay in the back until you're ready to jump forward. And this is where I think I'm in my journey. I found like I've spent a lot of time at the back. I did my own thing. I practiced. I did this, and now I feel like I'm confident enough to start jumping forward. So that's where I am in terms of my drafts. Like my first novel, and people who read this read the draft are surprised that this is a draft. They're like, "This is a draft? Like this is already like a well-written." I'm like, "Yes, but it's not good enough yet." So that's how I feel like I'm in terms of my journey. I still see the flaws, and the more I analyze other stories, other media, the more I realize where my flaws are. But I wouldn't have done this if I was 20. 20 was not the age for me to write my masterpiece. It was the age of me experimenting with ideas. But I did some interesting scripts. I did some interesting ideas. I shared them a few times before. There's two ideas. There's the current story that I have, and there's a prologue, chapter in the writing library of my Discord page, so you can actually read what I'm trying to get at. It's still in a little bit of a draft stage. It's maybe like first revision, I would say, stage, but it gives you an idea of what I'm trying to accomplish. And then I'm still haven't finished the draft, but I just want to share with people of like how I write. And then there's obviously the script as well. You can find it in the writing library. So if you're curious, you can find it. I feel like I'm missing something about how I approach rewriting and developing scripts beyond spelling mistakes. Yes, it's people who rewrite. It's not just fixing spelling mistakes, and it's like if it's a novel, and you say like your characters, and I get the one. If someone who I did this to is like, they will know who I'm talking about. But a great example was they wrote in their draft, they wrote he saw his village on fire, whatever it was. He saw his village on fire, and when he saw the blade coming towards him, his life flashed before his eyes. Something along those lines. It's like paraphrasing here, but the phrase I didn't like is "life flashed before his eyes" because it's such a basic phrase. That's what the author wants to convey. And then I say, let's write it better. How do we make this sentence better? How do we do this? And then he's like, okay, and it's a difficult thing. It's a difficult thing to do because you're like, where do I stop in my little in this revision? But sometimes you just push it. Like, is this the max you can get out of your story? Is this dramatic enough? Is this sad enough? Are you sure like this is good enough? And once you feel like confidently saying yes, then it's the revision is done. Sometimes some of the scenes are not necessary. There's a few chapters in my story that I will just cut out immediately because I realize what those chapters were there for me, not for the reader. I'll cut those out. Yes. So, but it's a process, and I haven't found it like the go-to way of finding it. One of the ways I saw it as well when it comes to repetitions in your prose, or like repeating ideas, it's a bit like if you know how to do a Sudoku, it's like that. If you know Sudokus, you have 1 to 9. You have to write the numbers in a row and a column, and they cannot repeat. So you have a 9 in this row. You cannot have a 9 again. It has to be somewhere else. So when it comes to repeating the words, if I say, bringers bring brightness as much as they can bring, I'm like, you already have 3 9s in this row, so you have to get rid of 2 of them. So I wouldn't say bring brightness because it's too similar to the word. So I would say we bringers choose to bring brightness over, again, bringers. It's the bringers. We choose to bring light wherever we go. That's why we're called bringers or whatever. I wouldn't even say that's why we call bringers would be a good idea, but you know what I mean. It's like bring, bring, bring. You have 3 9s in a Sudoku row. Get rid of 2 of them. You don't need them, unless there's a repetition for emphasis. The pain, um, the pain caused by the wound, um, filled me with fear. Pain that I can only describe as this and this. So pain is a repeat word, but it's there to emphasize what the character is talking about. So you can use repetitions, but normally I try to avoid them. Try it like a Sudoku. You just like it's in a row, so you cannot have it in the same column. Let's say it's already there. The 9 is already there, so you cannot have it. Think how I can make it better, and people get stuck on that. Let's see. Where are we going now? Also, hello all new viewers. If anyone's joining us, welcome. We done a lot of the chatty. We answered a lot of the questions. There's still a lot of questions to go, I think. Oh my god, yes. So we'll get there. We'll get there, hopefully. I need another little sip of water because I usually have a fan in my room, but obviously for audio purposes, I have to sweat a bit. I find Jax to be my favorite character, but I do think Jax should be punished a lot more. Yeah, like putting him in a maid dress is not necessarily the punishment I would imagine him to have. But at least it's something. I'm not. Digital Circus has never appealed to me that much where I'm invested. As I said, the burger episode was probably the best one where I was like, oh, it's I can see what they're trying to do. But the first 2 episodes were just like, okay, just having fun there, I see. Favorite writing substitute teacher. When you write a story, you need to make it count. Yep. Chapter 1, I find okay. If you see Byakuya's chats, he knows what he's talking about. We talk about it in Discord, so you can read his comments. They're quite useful, but they're not questions. I don't need to answer his questions. He knows what he's talking about mostly. Make audience more curious. This is why I tell folks. Okay, Byakuya is still there. Finish a chapter and a half as soon as I finish your video. Yeah, get into it. Trying to do an isekai writing contest where you need to write a 50,000 word story. Oh my god, it's like a novella. 44 days left. Yeah, just bash through it. Outlining is a very useful thing. Recommendations of anime with good writing. Frieren. Problem with Frieren a little bit is that they are not feeling confident with their visual storytelling, so they repeat in the dialogue. They repeat it a little bit. So yeah, Odd Taxi. We already mentioned this one. Psychopaths. Serial Experiments Lane. Serial Experiments Lane is a complicated one, so it might be. You're looking at, whatchamacallit, not bachelor's, what's even higher than master's degree? You're looking at a PhD level writing where maybe you might want just grad student writing, because it takes a while for you to figure out Experiments Lane. It's like watching a David Lynch film. It takes you a while and a lot of thought process to get through, understand what's happening. And that you might not be ready for that if you don't get a certain kind of mindset, if you don't pay attention to the details. How do you create? So another comment. How do you create nihilistic, depressed, overpowered, hyper-competent characters without it feeling like Rick Sanchez, edgelord, author's pet? You don't. That's the neat part. How do you create nihilistic, depressed, overpowered, hyper-competent characters? Yeah, I don't know. I can't tell you because I wouldn't do it. I don't like nihilistic, depressed, overpowered, hyper-competent characters in my stories, so I don't know how to help you on that. I just don't have them. Like, why would I want to follow a nihilistic character or depressed character? That's not my goal of my stories. Like, I don't read those stories with those kind of characters. Overpowered character, why would I, where's the stakes if he's overpowered? Like, what, ReZero is anime with He's not overpowered though, but he's not nihilistic or depressed. He just shitty things happen to him, and that's great to watch. It's very compelling to watch how he is gonna deal with it. So yeah, you might have to look for someone else for that advice, because I just would say don't do it. I would rather have a hopeful character, or like with the depressed nihilism comes in maybe later in the story where something goes wrong. Please do a paid story review service. Okay. If there's demand for it, I'll do it. I just don't know how much I could charge, or how would I charge. I have no idea on these kind of elements. I saw local scriptman charging $500, so maybe I can do that. I'll do 450. I can do cheaper. I can do a cheaper ed better. How about that? No, I'm just joking. Until I could actually give something of value, I think. Story advice. Honestly, if you just read, we're doing public readings in the Discord server. If you hear me scoff, that means something's wrong, because I cannot force myself to not laugh if something goes wrong, something is weird. So my review is just that. Just pay attention to, like, if you hear me go, then something ain't right. You don't need me write a paragraph like something ain't right. My body is reacting to that. And I can't tell you what it is yet, but I read the sentence, and the sentence triggered something in my brain to make me have that reaction. And it sucks when you hear me scoff, or where you hear me like try to hold a laugh, but it's not mean. I'm not trying to be mean. It's just that I'm engaging with the story, and if something dumb happens, like, I'm imagining that as like a comedic moment. So you say, like, a character is going like, "This is who I am, Mom." And like, he might think that this is dramatic, but in my mind, it's like a comedy, like a OKKO scene. So that's what I mean. Like, my brain is already engaging with your story. It's just my reacting to it is your review. That's how I see it sometimes. I wouldn't charge for it. It's just something you can do if you're doing like readings in the VC, in the voice channel. But yeah, maybe I'll do something more competent. I have done it with a few people who were an animation team. We worked with, if you saw the last live stream, I worked with a character with an animation team who did Tom Chronicles. They currently are trying to get it greenlit. Didn't work out this time, I'm afraid, but hopefully I'm wishing them all the best. And Deadman is the person. I give him a shout out because he's Tom Chronicles. You can find his channel. I kind of believe in him most from many people, because he has such a charisma for like his dream, and I just can't not help him if I have time. So I can see where he has like passion, and he's putting effort, and he's meeting people, and he's talking to the right people, and he can do it. And that's what I want other people to do. I don't want them to come into me and be like, fix my story. Like, let's see where the passion is. And there's I don't know if I can spoil or not, but people who there's an animation called The Reaters, and they sent me the script, and I gave them feedback, and it's a quite harsh feedback. But I saw their animation, I was like, wow, this looks good. I want to help out if I can. I didn't give them for free, this for free, because I believe in their project. Where people who are just starting, maybe they're not in that stage yet where they need my feedback, maybe just the basic understanding. But where I see a project that has potential, I'm happy to join in. I can see people actually taking this career seriously, so then I'm in. But again, I don't know. I would be happier with just people donating money. Like, whatever you feel my value is worth, that's what you pay and what you can. I don't necessarily like, it's only time based. Like, if there might be at some point, if I get people to actually, want to work with me, and there might be too many people, then I have to, like, okay, I'll charge it, so I can at least get rid of anyone who's not up for who is not that dedicated. So maybe that's just the paywall. I don't want to do it, but it's just a potential that might be an inevitability if I do it. But again, I'm not talking about business blood here. But if there's a demand, I'll try to supply it. At the moment, I think my videos will help out a lot to deal with a lot of the problems that you would have to pay professional writing advisors for. Like, my goal is for this channel is just write some, give you some basic rules. And if you say, oh, I didn't do it, or I did do it, that's you don't need to pay money for a college degree necessarily. If these videos can help you, it saves you money and saves you the heartache. Okay. Where was I? What important lessons have you learned from your draft revision process? I think I mentioned this before. It's already like my prose needs work. My novel writing prose is different from script writing prose. And that's where I'm working at. I'm listening to just Gene Wolfe, Frank Herbert, and just trying to figure out how they do it, and then just try to apply my ideas. Once I figure out why they do it, then I apply the ideas. Draft is also people who read my first draft of chapter 1 and the revision, the revision part. They can see night and day where my focus shifted. My first story was in the first chapter. It's not much of a spoiler. Again, it's there's basically a war scene. There's a race. There's a race of sort of again, I don't want to necessarily spoil, but yeah, it's a race of alien machine sort of species who are destroying a planet. Similar, and another alien invasion, right? And we're following the main character, who's one of them. And a lot of my beginning chapters was about this invasion, right? So a lot of my sentences were like, we are planning to do this because of this. The plan was we need to herd all the people into a specific location and then execute them one by one, like execute them in groups, reduce the amount of so that the humans don't spread around. We want to keep them condensed, and it's telling you the actual mechanics of this invasion. And it's interesting, but it wasn't what I wanted, what I realized my story is about. It's not about the logistics of the invasion. It's about his perspective on the invasion, the main characters. So when he's like watching the invasion happening, he's wondering why he's there, because the invasion is such an easy thing to do. It's an insult to his, to basically his competency. So he's like, yeah, we're doing this. I'm, how do I make the most out of this invasion? He doesn't even see the brutality because it's such a useful, such a thing that he's not engaging with. And so I spend more time in the revision about him as the character, not the invasion itself. We can imagine what an invasion is. It's what's his perspective on it that's more interesting. So that's where revision comes around for me. It's like, at the beginning, it was just telling what is happening. At the second, in the draft, it was telling what's happening. In the revision, it's what do I want to focus on in terms of what's happening. So that's how I see when it comes to revision. You as you finish your draft, figured out what the story is about, the actual story is about. And now in the revision, you're now rewriting on how to get that story, the real story, in. At least that's how I see it, the draft revision focus. If there is one, what do you consider the premier method for giving informative feedback to those receptive? Oh, I know why you're asking this question. There's no one way of doing it. You just give the feedback what you felt. Mine is highly humorous and slightly insulting. So unfortunately, you get the harsh critique when you're doing with me. It's like, why are you making this character psycho? And they're like, what do you mean? She's not a psycho. She's this. Like, well, that's what your actions are telling me right now, and this is what I'm feeling. And people are like, no, it's not right. And when I ask, where's your story? And they're like, no, it's right there, chapter 1. Like, no, what I mean is you're introducing the characters, but you're not doing anything in this world. And then they get all huffy, and then they go back and, cry a little bit, and then they come back and rewrite it. But it's like, I'm not going to be sugarcoating this a little bit. I'm just going to either making jokingly comments about it, or, just for say, ask the questions. But it doesn't mean you have to do it that way in terms of feedback. It's just me. It's like, I'm giving you this. How you want to take it, it's up to you. It's not my job to make you feel good about yourself. My job is to say what I felt, and you can take this. And if it's useful, it's useful. If it's like, I didn't get it, then, that's what it is. It is what it is. and I was saying in the VCs in the voice chat, it's like an author getting feedback is, especially beginning authors, are like animals who are cornered, like cornered animals. They will bare their teeth, they will scratch, they will bite as you try to approach them because they don't trust you. They don't want to be hurt by you. So they bite, they do, they do, you don't understand my story, you don't understand what I'm, trying. This is yada yada yada. You're just a has been, whatever. You're like, okay, you can do your biting. I'll step back. I told my feedback. You're angry. I'm stepping away. You can do whatever now. And then maybe they come back again, and then it's again. I don't want to necessarily say like writers are cornered animals, but sometimes it feels like that. And when you get a bit, you trust a little bit more. Someone says like, oh, your story sucks, Trend. I'm like, okay, thank you, okay. It's like, thank you for the feedback. I'll take that into mind. And it's like, oh, maybe the pacing is wrong. I'm like, oh, let's discuss this a bit more. Like, you're not saying you trust the other person is trying to help you. Like when you're the cornered animal mentality, like you try to pick up a stray and the stray is angry, but it wants the help, but it's just too scared to actually accept it. So you have to play around with it a little. You have to you have to step back, give it space, and then you have to try it again and try it again. I know it's a kind of a brutalist way of seeing it, but that's kind of that's how I see it. And once you start getting enough feedback, you get used to it. It's like, the story sucks. I'm like, yeah, okay. And then you go get the valuable critiques. You can tell apart which are useful and which are not useful. I have a book I'm writing that turns into a war. It is becoming into a series. You're saying don't focus on the series? Yeah. Like you don't have to focus it being a series. Focus on the story, the first book, the first story. If it becomes a war, I'm not sure. I'm sure you're not going to cover the entire war in this one book. So focus on the story in that book, and when it turns into a war, you can focus on a different part of this war. Again, you don't have to be Martin. And look what happens with Martin. He wrote himself into a corner. Like, you can't. It's nothing. He's like, oh, I'll get there when I get there. I want it to be right. I'm like, no, you wrote yourself into a corner because you set up so many things. Now you have to unwind that. You have to untangle that mess. And I'm sure he's gonna maybe figure it out, but who knows? Like, that's the problem with having like a huge complicated story, is because you can wrangle yourself into this mess. That's why I try to dissuade people from writing multiple POVs. It's my number one thing that I help, not help, but like I try to discourage. There's even a rule in my mind, which is if you have multiple POVs, your story's dead. Because that's how I see it. It's like your story is so dead before you even wrote it. If you told me that you have multiple POVs, it's over. Because I've never seen anyone who I saw someone starting a project to finish a project with multiple POVs. And I don't know what it is. It's just like, it's never the first book that you try to have multiple POVs, because you shift from, it's not a movie. You don't shift from one shot to the scene, the different scene. You can do as if the narrator is the omniscient narrator. But if you're jumping from one POV to another POV, you confuse yourself. It's either you're a narrator telling you see in the full thing, or you just focus on one character, and that gives you extra challenge. Like the reason why I write my first person, and I realize where the problem is. In my novel, I'm writing in the first person, so it's limited to the main character of what he's seeing, what he's hearing. But I have to introduce elements that are not in his range. So I have to introduce the character who brings the information. I have this introduced. I have to. I know that at one point he'll have to leave the main party to deal with his problems. I'm like, how do I introduce how does he see what's happening in, like, how does he see it, things happening where he's not there? It's like, is it even possible? And it's like, it's a difficult one, but that's the challenge. It's like, I'm limiting the POV, but at least I know where I can introduce that information later in a different way. And people who say I want to do multiple POVs are just people who are not willing to experiment, like dealing that information. It's like, I'll split up the party, and now the party's about two different characters. I'm like, no, I think we can get there. I think we can get there without needing to multiple POVs. But again, it's just a rule of thumb. Is like multiple POV, your story dead. And I haven't changed my opinion on that yet. I can't comprehend starting a story with 8 or more characters. Yeah, I can only focus on at most 4 core characters in the beginning. My story started with really 1 character, 2 characters, 3. 3 is the 3 main ones. And then halfway through the story, we're getting a 4th one, and so on and so forth. There's a few side characters, but they come and go. Oh my god. Where was I? Oh yeah, there we go. I have a book I'm writing. Okay, I read this. Subversion-wise, H.P. Lovecraft. Yeah. We know the H.P. Lovecraft cat. What if you're an artist and you want to make a graphic novel, comic book, or manga, but don't have the writing skills? What should you do? Get a writer. Get a writer. Have a collaboration with a writer. It's like nothing I can say. It's like what I hope to do, and this is my kind of dream a little bit, is that people who watch my videos will appreciate writing as a skill. It's not like I'm an artist and I guess I'll write a story about my character that I drew. No, get someone who's a practiced writer to get more out of your character. You love the design. You focus on the drawing part, on the composition, on this. The writer will focus on the dialogue and making your character shine. It's very difficult to be an artist and a writer at the same time. It's possible. It's just that there's plenty of writers who might help you out. So no fear in looking for a writer, and the writers will appreciate you trying. If you see their works, you like it, and you say, I want to do a graphic novel. Do you want to? There's a story. Like, hey, Martin wrote for Dark Souls. There's no reason why he could have written his own, but he got hired to write story for Dark Souls. It's like, yeah, great. Dark Souls 3, I think, wasn't it? And he did it. They didn't have to hire Martin, but they did. So great. But that probably is more of a marketing ploy than it is a genuine. We need help. Gravity Falls. They say perfect is the enemy of good, which I don't really like. Running a marathon is a good counter analogy. Yeah, well, perfection. At some point, you have to release your story. The goal is it needs to be good enough, and then see what happens. Get the feedback. If it's one of the discussions we had after I released my video was about your first stories. Like, oh, this author's first book, it was super successful, right? And he's like, well, and it is first J.K. Rowling, her first book was a massive success, Harry Potter. And she wrote that, you said your first story sucks. I'm like, yeah, your first story sucks, but your first published book, it probably is good, or at least good enough to be published. So you had to write a lot of nonsense before you even get a publisher. And that's one of the discussions about self-publishing. Self-publishing is like the Obama meme, where the Obama is putting the medal on yourself. As a published author, you give yourself a medal for like, okay, this is good enough. I release it. And that's normally not a good thing to do, because a publisher will or an agent will look at it and say there's a potential here. And the agent or publisher, they read millions of stories. They'll know, they have a good idea of what will sell and what will not. And they say, this is good. I can see the potential. Here's a medal for you. We'll publish it. And they might have their own reasons, of course, to do it. But at least for the time being, someone else approved it. And self-publishing, no one approves it but you. And it's like, okay, I wrote garbage, but I feel like it's good, therefore release it. And a publisher will be like, no, we need to get you an editor. We need to edit this. We need to fix this. Are you willing to do that? Yes, great. You write it. There you go. And that's how it normally went in the industry before self-publishing became more. There was someone looking at your work, and when you reach the stage of being a published author, it means that someone has given you an approval, and then you can say like, okay, I did the bare minimum. I did the bare minimum to achieve this publishing, and then you can write a different story, knowing that this is what they expect you to have, and now you can make it better. So hopefully that makes sense in terms of the perfection. By the way, which video you're very proud of in your YouTube channel? I like the Freer one. It's not getting a lot of views, but I really like it. It may be a bit more rambly than usual ones, and maybe it's not getting the views that I wanted to get, but I really like the Sosono Freer and how to take storytelling beyond. That one I really like making, and it has a lot of great points that helps in terms of visual storying and finding subtext. Maybe some points are weaker, but I don't know. I'm just surprised it didn't work as much. And then I really like the 3 levels of visual storytelling. That again doesn't get a lot of views. Again, maybe it was a bit more rambly again, but it's how I see it. It's the middle ground in terms of storytelling. In terms of what I want to explain when it comes to like Marvel movies on like cinema, is the Scorsese idea of Marvel movies are not cinema; they're more like roller coasters. It's like, yes, I kind of agree with that point, but that's because my definition of cinema is like the level 3 part of visual storytelling. It means you're engaging with the cinema language, which is a genuine language that is studied and it's practiced and so on. If your movie is not engaging in that language, like how can I call it, cinema language? They're not using it, so they're movies in one way, but they're not. Like if I put a rock on a pedestal and call it a sculpture, technically you can, but is it a sculpture where it's something you sculpted? Where you takes the same, a certain skill set and technique to get that. And that's okay. This is a sculpture, and this is just a rock on a pedestal. And maybe you etch your name into it, and that would technically be a sculpture, but it's technicality. It's a different level. So when Scorsese says Marvel movies are not cinema, I kind of feel like it's like that. They are technically movies, but they're not using any of the cinematic language that normally comes with movies, or at least at a very low level. So Iron Man is still using, like, as I said, I put it in level 2 because it still has a subtext, it has meaning behind the shots. And level 3 has more than that. Whereas, like, say, Captain Marvel or something, it's just you'll see camera is placed in front of the character, mid-shot, close-up. The camera is not doing anything exciting. He's not actually conveying a story. It's just there to show what the characters are doing, which is more common for sitcoms and TV shows. But I don't want to spoil the full story. You can look at that. You can look at that at your own time. But that's the general gist of it. Those I'm proud of. Those, and I'm also proud of the other ones. They took a long time. The Cyberpunk one I liked. It's a very early one, and Isekai Roulette is a great one. Although the audio is pretty bad. Me and Nev are just making a story like using a roulette table, and it just turns out very well. Like the reactions, and then you were like, wait a minute, actually this might work. Yeah. So where was I? Do you think writing short stories are a good way of starting off? Yes, short stories are great. One of my short stories was about a guy basically staying late night on the computer, and he sees a spider, and that spider, he doesn't like the spider, but the spider is just minding his own business, and he's not bothering the human, but the character decides he wants to kill the spider because it's bothering him, right? And instead of killing, like squishing him or doing the cup thing, he takes like a spray, like a poison. Takes a spray of poison. He walks up to the spider and he sprays the spider down, and the spider falls under the couch. And the guy's like, "Nah, never mind. It's gonna die anyway." And the guy just live his life, and then he goes to bed, and then at night he wakes up and notices that the poison spider still crawls into his mouth and poisons him. Is this vindictive? Whether the spider's going there to, and the character, whether the spider's there going to die, like trying to find a place to die, or it's just there to like get his revenge. That was a short story that I just wrote. Another short story I'm writing is again, I don't know whether I'm going to release it or not, but it's Crows of War. It's called. It's a very short, not too short of a story, but it's about a crow that gets it's a crow, a story from a crow's perspective. And it's more like warrior cats, where they're sort of not anthropomorphic, but like you're watching them interacting with the world, and it's set in like World War II, and there's a messenger pigeon that gets shot down, and the crow picks up the message, and the pigeon says, "Go, can you deliver this message?" And the crow is like, "Well, this is not my war," but he promises the pigeon that he did to do it, and then you see this crow trying to deliver the message. And there's like a hawk trying to, not a hawk, a falcon, sorry, a falcon trying to chase him down. And the other crows are just enjoying feasting on the dead, but this one gives him a purpose, that story. And, the story just goes on, a little bit of an adventure there. But I like them. It's like little ideas that I can just invest a little bit of time. That's how I do. Again, just playing around with the ideas, but I like Crows of War as a story. There's a few other ones, but you can see what the story is going to be. It's not going to be a huge fantasy story. It's just a very specific journey, and I can work on it. It's one, he gets a message, he needs to deliver it there. There's someone chasing him, and there's someone helping him. There you go, bing bam bomb, and you can make a little novella. Are you ready for Glitch Nights, or if Guinevere is written by the creator of Owl House? I don't know those. I don't know those things, so neither the Owl House nor Glitch Nights. Do you do editing? Where can I buy your services, lol? I don't do editing. No, I wouldn't trust myself. I could only help you. I'm not an editor. I will not notice. I know an editor who could do it, but I probably wouldn't invest that much time into it. Just my time is fairly limited. I can just say whether it's going well. I can review it. I could be like, here's some problems. But again, I don't particularly know how to monetize if I have those kind of service, I don't know how to monetize them. $500 for consultation. Yeah. Why is my thing not working? It glitched out. Okay. We're back, but guys, don't worry. I'm still here. I think we reached the chats. I think we caught up almost. Nice. Because that's what I'm doing. Am I dead? Oh no. So do you have any projects that you're working on? Yes. I think I answered some of those questions. Yellow Star, sorry for being delayed. I'm still trying to catch up with all the chats. What are your favorite movies and shows? I watch a lot of anime, not gonna lie. Movies I already discussed. It's Blade Runner, Godfather Part 2, Lord of the Rings, some of the classics, Bicycle Thief. Wolf Children, if you want the anime movies as well. Do you have a favorite book you like to read? Warrior Cats. Yellow Star asked me if I like books I like to read. I love Warrior Cats books. I love them as a teenager or like a 14-year-old. It's one of the first books that really got me into like storytelling in particular, because it's just like, I want to make my own cat OC that is in Shadow Clan. Yeah, let's go. And I'll call him like Evil Claw or whatever I wanted to call him, like the edgelord of the characters. And then I started to like, why do I have to make him evil? I don't need to do that. That it's one of those stories that's just like easy to create your world around. It's easy to start. It's easy to start those kind of that mindset, because the world is set up for you, and you can just make your own OC in that world, and you can imagine what it's like because they spend time on the culture of being in that world. It's not, it's very basic stories, and they just, Erring Hunter, which is a collection of different writers, are just shooting the ball out like those stories. I think it's just the first saga worked well, and then I grew out of them. But those are super easy to read. Northern Lights, or The Golden Compass, is also a great book as well. Very, it also made me feel things. But I don't particularly read books for like the entertainment. I read them to study them and to improve myself. I'm much more of a filmmaker guy. But if you hire a bad writer, how to tell a good writer from a mediocre one? Good question. I can't really. It's you have to look at their works. You have to read their stories and be like, this is the one I want to have in my team. That's the only way you can really do it. And you hire them for knowing, so they have to have a portfolio of stories. Yeah. Is that it? Did I catch up to all this? I don't believe it. Let me see the live chat. Yeah, I think I caught up with all the chats. Exciting. Oh boy. I hope my ramble didn't get too exhausting for you. Certainly did for me. Let me see what we're doing for time. 2 hours. Wow, we shot through this. So now we can look at anything you want to know in terms of storytelling. Let me know in the chat. I'm happy to show, but there's a few. My Google Docs are getting bigger with other people's stories. We also have a ranking list as well. We rank stories. And a lot of the things are in my Discord. So you can find, we spend a lot of time there chatting, hanging out. One of the things I guess I can talk about the sort of late stage, I think I can do still half an hour, 20 minutes. One things I like to do is like, how do you start your story? Well, there's a prologue is the best way to do it. But, well, not the best way. That's the most important part is the prologue that I used to often skip which is a stupid thing I did when I was a kid. I was like, I want to go to chapter 1 right away. I don't care about the prologue. And then you realize how important the prologue is. And you're like, no, I skipped so many things. Prologue is first sentence should capture everything that your story is going to be about. First sentence is like super important, or first few sentences. And you can see all of the greatest work start with like a very unique hook to get you going. But you don't have to start your story with the prologue. You can start with chapter 1. First chapters become super duper easy. I say super duper easy. You just like, what's the story? I could show it to you, but I don't have an idea of what you can write. Let's see. Feel free to ask any more questions, by the way. I'm all blank. I was so caught up into answering everyone's questions that I forgot what I would want to talk about the topic. Because we covered a lot of the questions were answered in the people who already asked the questions. So like, how do you get feedback? How to utilize feedback? That was a common question in my video. Let's have a look. I'll have a look at my videos again for a second. See if it's throwing some shade at Local Script Man. I was confused. I was excited to people keep praising Local Script Man in my Discord. It's like, oh, I spoke to him. I was watching his videos. I have no idea what he was talking about. The way he explains things is so what's the word for it? Like overcomplicated, that you get nothing out of it. You might get a sense of what's happening, but not really. It's like how you simplify these concepts that you're like, oh, the subconscious and the conscious are all working together in between the lines of the wants and the needs and the lie and the truth. It's like, slow down. What are we talking about exactly? How do we make this into a story? Oh, character sheets. One of the things that he had. I avoid character sheets. If I have a character sheet, and I sometimes do, is like writing notes as I write the story. Then I add like information about the character. I don't start with like 5 character sheets with the character. I don't see the point. Like the character is gonna develop as we're telling the story. I just need to know the basic. What's his, like, if I can use one word to describe this character, what would it be? It's like, and then I have those words, and how would I then make a character out of it? And why would this character be this character? Why do I want this character to be this? What is, and then I can start giving them hobbies and interest and appearance and all that stuff. But like for me, figuring out like what's their purpose is the number one thing in the story. Do I need a annoying character? Maybe not. Maybe I do because I have a serious character and it contrasts with an annoying one. Or maybe I want a character who's clueless so they can ask the questions that would prompt explain what's happening to the audience. Gene Wolfe has Dorcas, one of my favorite characters from his book. And Dorcas is off as like a confused like young girl. And Severian, the main character, has to keep explaining things to her. And it's like, okay, you're explaining it to the audience now. Good. But at least you have a character that plays around with that. I left a blank page now. No. Severian. I'll take a little drink while... Funny about character sheets or like writing character skills. I gave my protagonist too many skills at the beginning because I was like, oh, I want him to do this and this and this and this, and then I realized no, he doesn't need to do all of this. Let's give him like there's other characters who can do all of those things. If my character has all these skills, then there's no need for the other characters to exist because he would just do it by himself. And that's often a big problem. You have to have characters who can actually be useful in the story. Whiteboard, people see me use the whiteboard. I like using the whiteboards. It's like if you see this page, you can do a little box. This is how I like to write the little boxes. You have your character. Depending on what type of story you're writing. So I'll just give it a color. Give it a green. Oh, black, green. And then you can go again, black, green. Sorry, black and green. So if you start your conclusion, you have your beginning. And then you start building. This is you've seen this if you watch my live streams. This is how I often do. Is like, let's say, gambling debt is what easy one. Gambling debt, right? That's the conflict. Is like there's a character who has a gambling debt, and he needs to pay off the gambling debt, obviously. But there's also like a demon. Reward for killing a giant. That's like easy one as well. So this is how I would go. Like this is the conflict and that's the resolution, right? So we need someone to have a gambling debt and we need them to kill the giant to pay off the gambling debt. So this like is a nice little circle story. Right? And in order to figure out how do we connect these two things is maybe he was if he has a gambling debt, that means he's a gambler, the main character. So let's do our little character. Oh, sorry. So we know that the camera. So who would kill this? Who would have a gambling debt and kill a giant? Well, it's probably going to be some kind of warrior. And you already have a personality. He has a gambler. You already have 2 personality traits. So, check. He's a warrior gambler. And he has a gambling debt, and he pays off the gambling debt by killing the giant, because that's what he is. He's a warrior. He knows he could do it. Oh, sorry. Let me just scroll down. Okay, bye, Toby Nader. Yeah, gambling debt, killer, or killing a giant. So then we find out why he's a gambler. We might go back to the past and explore. I'll put this in golden, actually, because that's our character now. We have our conflict. We have our. We want to go back to explaining why he's a gambler. It's because maybe, and that's our. I'll put it in red. Oh, you can't see it. Sorry. Yes. Warrior, gambler, gambling debt, and he had. Let's say he, life is boring for him. He likes the risks. He likes risks. And now you're getting to the idea of like he has risk, and then of course you can go down to why he has those. He likes risks, is because maybe he's bored or depressed or whatever, and he's taking risk in order to. That's why he became a. And the thing is that this, what I mentioned here, is that his risk, desire for risk, explains both him being a warrior and a gambler. And thus but that brought him to gambling debt, and also that is to the killing the giant. That leads him to killing the giant. That's what the story is. It's like, as long as I write these two, the conflict and the resolution, the conflict and resolution, I can start building a story. And then he might meet someone who's not a gambler, or who's someone who's scared. You could have like a scared mage. I'll color this again blue. So why do we have the scared mage? Is because, well, it's great because she hates risks. This is what she hates, or he hates. I'll give him a female character like a. So these are gonna have already more conflicts between the two, and also maybe he's gonna need to learn to take some risks as well. But they both are going to killing the giant. Like, they're both there, but she might have her own reason. So that's how this is how I would structure a story. Like, I have a gambler warrior, and now we can have a scared mage. They both, one's risks, one is afraid of risks. One has to clear a gambling debt, the other one has to, let's say, achieve a rite of passage or something like that. Achieve a new magical, let's say, again, achieve a new magical power that may be kept by the giant. The giant keeps the magical power. So they have something in common, but they all have they have their own different quests. In order to achieve magical power, she has to take risks, which she's afraid of doing. And there you go, simple story. You don't need character sheets. You don't need a huge amount of like reading. You can already construct this. If you know how to construct all of this, it's super duper. Like, you have things to go. And then you just expand this information as you write it. All I need to know now is that it's a warrior and a gambler, and you might have another mage, and you may have like someone who's also. But we are coming to the theme, of risks. Like, let's say if we want to go for that way. So that's my little explanation again for anyone who's like, how do I write a story? How do I begin? This might be the way. And then you jump to your story, and what do we do? It's like, how do we introduce this? Oh, sorry. How do we introduce this this story in chapter 1? I could start with a dialogue. So like, it's either the giant or the it's either the giant or who would be I guess it would be the gang, so I would give it a name. Let's say for now it's going to be a gang, or the gang, and then I would give him a name, fantasy. If it's a fantasy character, Tony, let's go with him. Tony. Anthony would be Anton. It's either the... Which would you battle? And then S. Staring, yada, yada, yada. Staring, you know. I'll give it simple for now. Yeah. And then you would have the main character already start to say, like, you know, his perspective on this. So if he's a warrior, he would know a little bit more. He would make this decision, a calculated decision. So you could go, you know, a giant is slow, but you know, but a single target, you know, a giant is slow single target, or whatever. You know, you start to think about it. How would he answer the main character with this gambling? That he's a warrior, experienced warrior. He takes risks, and here's even in this sentence. Even in the sentence, you can start creating a character, because he's like, if he likes risks, would he not fight the gang instead of the giant? Well, maybe this is the time where he's changing his perspective. Maybe he's actually thinking taking down both if he can. But there's many ways of doing it. Yeah. So yeah, and you begin writing, and thus you keep on writing, rolling. But that's what you call it. Like, it's either the giant or the gang. That's like, you know, for me, is like, that's all we need to know about the character. He's gonna fight some. Oh, sorry, keep clicking on the wrong things. That's all we need to know about the character so far. We don't need the character sheet. We already know what his problem is, and he might give an answer to that, and that's all we explain. Because we know he's in trouble, he needs to do one or the other thing. So if you're struggling to look at the very beginning, this is how you can start thinking about it. So yeah, hopefully that was useful. Is there anything more we need to discuss? Oh, we still have 10 minutes. If you have any more questions, feel free to ask. As always, if you find this useful, you can always send a super chat. You can always send a Ko-Fi page. You can always support me in any way you want, or you can always join the Discord page as well and just chill out there with us after the streams. I'll always come back there to chat. You don't need to be shy, you don't need to be anything. You just come in there and just chat, share your stories, and enjoy life, and then get to writing. Yeah, well, give a few more minutes. If you have any more questions, feel free to ask now or forever be silent. Feel free to ask. It's your time to shine. Go. Do you think writing fanfics can improve writing skills for a professional level of writing career? Like using fanfics as practice? Yes, you can, but I wouldn't dwell on it too much. I wouldn't dwell on it too much. It's just, you write fanfic, but the problem is you haven't went through the process of creating the characters or the meaning for the characters. So that is the danger. That is the danger, Skylar. Oh God, is my connection down? Hopefully not. What about showing off artwork on the Discord? I'm going both of these in writing. What about showing off artwork in the Discord? Yeah, we have that. We have self-promotion channels. We have art gallery. We even have the Shadow Realm, but I don't recommend you going to the Shadow Realm. Let's see, what else do we have here? You mean... Okay, I think my connection is either dropping or maybe I am dropping. Let me refresh this a little bit. it's interesting because I can see where most people who are slightly above higher level in terms of writing usually just DM me as opposed to sharing the stories, which are it's interesting, which I'm happy to still see. So I'm happy to still see people sharing their stories, but like, you don't need to come to the DMs to chat with me. Just get on voice. I'll be there. Oh my god, my connection. No. What's happening? Am I still connected? Oh god, I don't think I am. Hello, Chatty. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. Okay, sorry, I was disappearing for a second. Everything crashed on me. It shows that it's time for me to almost leave. What are my specific problems as a writer? Tell me. I don't know. Why the shots at Platoon? I love Platoon. I also love Platoon. He just chose the perfect character for me to like epitomize like all the intellectuals, as the EFAB likes to say, all the intellectuals of writing who are like, I have a turtleneck and a blazer, and I also read a lot of books, and I also have thicker rimmed glasses probably. It's like, why do you need to be the clip art for a nerd? Not a nerd, but like a that like intellectual writer. You don't have to look that part. You can just be a writer. It's like you don't have to be this artiste like French intellectual. You don't need to do that. Like just be yourself, and maybe you are that. Maybe you are that, but it's just the perfect picture for that sort of like. Can you please be quiet? I'm trying to write my novel. Like that mindset. So yeah, it's like, that's why for me it's like tracksuit is probably the best one. Is the most. It's great. It captures what, like, no faffing around, just pure unadulterated action. Let's go do, and it also covers the fact that I'm Eastern European, so that helps a lot as well. But besides that, if you have no more questions, I think it's a good time for me to end the stream. As always, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Come to the Discord if you want to chill out. Links in the description. There's recommended readings there. My Ko-Fi page is available if you want to send your love and support. If you do want. If you have no money, that's okay. The content is for you to enjoy. You only pay what you want. There you go. I'll show my little Ko-Fi page. And maybe one day I'll decide if I could do like a service. I'll be like, I'll read your story and give feedback. Even though you probably can get that on Discord right now for free. But again, time is limited, and eventually, if I get big enough, then yeah, use it while you can. Use it while you're here. Use it while I'm still a small little channel that no one really cares about, or at least not enough people to be like, okay, this guy is a heavy player in the writing community. I'm like, no. I'm just in my little corner talking about my own things. Yeah, but for now, I'll see you around. Enjoy. Bye.